You've heard it, right? For years, there's been this comforting little whisper that a glass of red wine with dinner isn't just okay, it might actually be good for you. It's a really nice thought, but what if the science that whole story was built on has a fatal flaw? Okay, let's dive into this and see what the latest research is actually telling us about alcohol and our health. I mean, this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Is that daily beer you have or that glass of wine at night, is it a harmless ritual or could it even be a health-promoting habit? Well, the answer has been super confusing for years, and it's mostly because of one very influential, very famous scientific idea. For the longest time, the scientific consensus was all built around this one concept, the J-shaped curve. This was the big idea that gave moderate drinkers a collective sigh of relief, because it suggested they were actually doing better health-wise than people who didn't drink at all. So the idea was pretty simple. When you plot out mortality risk against how much alcohol someone drinks, you get this J shape on the graph. So for non-drinkers, the risk is at a certain level. But for the low to moderate drinkers, we're talking 1 or 2 drinks a day, the risk of death from all causes actually seemed to dip by about 10 to 15%. Then, of course, as you drink more, the risk shoots way, way up. For decades, this made it look like the absolute sweet spot for your health was right there, in moderation. And look, this was the accepted wisdom for years, based on dozens of huge observational studies. But what happens when you start to look a little closer at the data? What if the way we were even defining a non-drinker was wrong from the very beginning, creating this illusion of health for moderate drinkers? It turns out the entire theory was resting on a huge critical flaw, a flaw that researchers now call the abstainer bias. And this one detail, it changes everything. It completely dismantles the logic of that J-shaped curve. So let's break down exactly what that means. Okay, so here's the problem. In most of those older studies, the abstainer group, the non-drinkers, was a total mixed bag. It didn't just include people who never drank, it also included a lot of former heavy drinkers who had to quit because they already had serious health problems. You see the issue? This created an artificially unhealthy baseline. So when you compare moderate drinkers to a group that's already sick, of course the drinkers look healthier. A true control group, the kind we should have been using all along, would only include lifetime abstainers, giving us a genuinely healthy comparison to start with. So, what happens when you actually go back and correct for this bias? Well, the J-shaped curve just vanishes. It's gone. That supposed health benefit for moderate drinkers disappears completely. The curve flattens out, which means, at best, a small amount of alcohol has a neutral effect, and at worst, it actually slightly increases your risk. So, with the myth officially busted, let's look at what alcohol is really doing inside our bodies. At its absolute core, the alcohol we drink is ethanol. And here's what makes it so powerful. It's both water-soluble and fat-soluble. Now, that property means it doesn't need a special key or transporter to get into your cells. It has an all-access pass. It can just cruise right through the membrane of every single cell and tissue in your body, your gut, your liver, your heart, and yep, your brain. It has totally unrestricted access. And let's be clear, your body recognizes it for exactly what it is, a toxin. The second you take a drink, your body kicks into high gear to get rid of this toxin. So first, your liver converts that ethanol into a substance called acetaldehyde. And listen, if you thought ethanol was bad, acetaldehyde is way, way worse. It's a recognized poison that directly damages your cells and your DNA. This stuff is what's responsible for most of the harm. It's only then that your body can convert that poison into something called acetate, which it can use as a really low-grade, empty-calorie fuel. Now, in the brain, it's a bit like this. Think of your brain's communication system as having a gas pedal and a brake pedal. The gas is a neurotransmitter called glutamate, and the brake is called GABA. What alcohol does is it essentially slams its foot down on the brake while taking its foot completely off the gas. And the result is a system-wide slowdown, which is exactly why we feel relaxed, why we feel less inhibited, and why our speech and coordination start to suffer. But this toxic effect isn't just a one-night-only event. The damage that acetaldehyde causes is cumulative. Every single drink contributes to a slow and steady erosion of our cellular health, especially in our most sensitive organ, the brain. And this is a pretty staggering finding from a massive study that used the UK Biobank. Researchers looked at the brains of over 35,000 adults and found a direct link.
even the kind of consumption that we would all call moderate, just 1 or 2 drinks per day, was associated with a measurable loss of brain volume, a thinning of the very part of our brain that's responsible for higher-level thought and reasoning.
And the damage isn't just to the brain. Because acetaldehyde can damage your DNA, alcohol is a known carcinogen. The link is especially strong for breast cancer. Get this, for every 10 grams of alcohol you consume per day, that's less than 1 standard drink in the US, the risk of developing breast cancer increases by somewhere between 4 and 13%. The takeaway here is really clear. When it comes to cancer risk, there is no safe level of alcohol consumption.
And it gets even more complex. Alcohol creates this really destructive feedback loop between 3 of your body's key systems. So first, it kills the good bacteria in your gut. This damages the gut lining, causing something called leaky gut, which lets toxins from bad bacteria slip into your bloodstream. Then your liver responds with all these inflammatory signals, and those signals travel to your brain, where they can actually increase your cravings for more alcohol, which starts that whole vicious cycle all over again.
And what about that dreaded feeling the next day? Well, a huge part of what causes hangovers are these toxic byproducts from fermentation called congeners. Darker liquors like brandy and red wine are just packed with them, which is why they can lead to much more severe hangovers. Clearer spirits like vodka and gin have very few. It's just another reminder that your body is processing these drinks as a whole collection of different toxins. So, after all this evidence, is there any case to be made for alcohol at all? Well, physiologically, the science is pretty clear. It offers no direct health benefits. But as nutrition scientist Dr. Layne Norton points out, we don't live in a vacuum. A drink can be part of a social ritual that brings us connection, that helps reduce stress. The real question is whether those psychological benefits can sometimes outweigh the physical harms. Okay, so let's just recap what we've uncovered here. That old idea that moderate drinking is healthy, it's pretty much based on a statistical illusion. Biologically, alcohol is a toxin that your body turns into an even worse poison, acetaldehyde, which causes widespread damage to your cells. And this leads to proven long-term risks, everything from brain shrinkage to cancer. Now, the goal here is not to judge or shame anyone's choices, but to arm you with the real data so you can make your own.
And that really is the final question, isn't it? We started by asking if a daily drink is good for you, and it seems the scientific answer is a pretty clear no. But knowing what we know now about all the risks involved, the choice really shifts back to us. It's not about a supposed health benefit anymore. It's about a personal calculation of risk versus reward. So, knowing the real science, what does moderation truly mean to you?